Good morning, everyone, and happy Memorial Day. Enjoy your day off. Today's a great day to spend with family and time to touch the grass. We're going to get into the weekend review today, but first I wanted to remind everyone that we are having our first Immersion Edge webinar on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So make sure you smash that button below and sign up for the webinar registration. It's going to be awesome. Rob and I are going to go through this incredible backtesting engine that he built and our first automated strategy that is for release to you. So can't wait to show you guys what's going on. Make sure you sign up for that and register. All right, now to get into exactly what's going on. Apparently over the weekend, there's some announcements that the Iranian war may be close to an end, even though Trump announced on social media that that is not the case. The market seems to think otherwise. We are up 64 points at the time of this recording, which is unbelievable. Again, we're surfing all-time highs on the holiday, on a day that the market is closed. Now, something to keep in mind, and this is, for those of you who've been trading with me for some time, I do not count any of the structure that has taken place on this holiday. For me, this is all hogwash. The market is closed. This is all futures action. This is not price action that I will be taking into consideration, other than the fact that an all-time high was made in Globex. So with that being said, we clearly have an upside target to look for when we actually come into the cash session tomorrow. But with that being said, all this price action that has happened last night from the open until now is completely irrelevant to me. I will remove this day from my mind, basically, as I'm starting to do some charting. So when we talk about it, you're going to understand my concept behind this, and essentially I wanted to kind of preclude that to let you guys know that I'm not really worried about today's action, other than the fact that it made a new all-time high. So, there's a general rule that when we have holiday trading, that all this will generally be retraced when we come back into the market. So I don't really think that this is sustainable for now. I think this is news-driven headline push, and we'll kind of go from there. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to take a look at the VIX, real quick look at SPX, and then we're going to dive into ES. So let's take a look. So as you can see here, VIX is absolutely getting beat down. This thing is just continuing to pull back and give the indices more and more relief as it continues to traverse all-time highs. There is clearly no fear in this market at this point in time. However, I will say this: when the VIX gets relatively low like this, this makes for short squeezes in the VIX and pops to happen fast, and they happen very quick. So if the ES does decide to sell off, this thing will move up pretty rapidly. And again, I'm not saying that it's going to, but with that being said, we certainly need to keep an eye on where we're at in this given location. As you can see down here, we generally get reactions more times than not. And so just given the general area of concern, something I certainly want to be aware of, right? So right now, just to show you guys where we're at, we basically have this 1748-ish weekly, monthly area, 1744, 1748. This is going to be our big above below pivot here for us to keep in mind coming into the new week, okay? So below us, for support right now, we have a monthly level at 1620. This monthly level is very important, and it also is very tested, okay? So we'll use this for above or below reference, but it could get a reaction, but like I said, it is very much tested. This area here is going to be our big above below pivot for coming into the new week, as if we push above the 17, let's just call it 1750s, we're going to start getting some headwind on the indices. We've already tested the 1843, and then of course the 1942, guys, that is a giant ceiling for us. Okay, this is played multiple times to the downside. So all this area is tested here. Our first untested spot is the 4-hour located at 2033. Okay, and again, it's a very small time frame. It's a 4-hour time frame. So do I expect it to get a reaction? Sure, but more than likely it won't kill it, and we'll continue to progress up. We have already tested our 2078 weekly as well, and so we really have no upside resistance that is untested other than this 4-hour level. So we do have some important static stuff that we want to keep aware of, and as we're moving above or below these levels, guys, but all this stuff is tested, so we're really going to be monitoring these for progression to understand the potential pressure that it could play on the indices. So that's what I got for you guys on VIX, because there's not much to talk about. We just keep continuing to move to the downside, and so it's really important for you to understand the important pivots that we're going to be looking for above or below. Now, looking at SPX, as we know right now, especially when I show you ES, we are hovering way up here somewhere right now. We decided to gap up on the Sunday session, and we're way up here, okay? Now, technically speaking, this 75.01 is the big untested daily that was played on Friday quite a few times and kept us suppressed. And right now, based on if we had a true holiday and the futures markets were not popped way up higher, that I would, simply say that this is our big resistance for above or below. Now that we're above it, technically 75.01 will give us some sort of support. But again, we are gapping above this area. So other than getting a reaction here, I'm not so certain exactly how much I love this spot. Actually, if anything, if I was short, I'd be using it for a target more so than looking at for a place to get long. That does not mean that it won't play for a long reaction. I just don't like the fact that we've gapped up on a holiday. And if we come back down, for me, it's like, yes, of course, it's very important structure. That's obvious. But, I'm just a little bit cautious when we gap up, especially on holidays, because, like I said before, this price action is a little irrelevant to me. So coming into the new week here, 75.01 is going to be very important for above or below. As you can see, obviously a test of 75.01 could send us higher, but really the way I'm looking at this is 75.01 is going to be very important for us to be above or below in terms of context, okay? I have two levels that I would buy if we continue to move down. I have 74.35, which is a 4-hour, and I have 74.12 / 74.10. 74.12 is a daily, 74.10 is a 1-hour. I like the structure, I like the move up. So I'm going to go ahead and include 10 in our numbers here, guys. Okay, so 35, and then we got the 12-10 area. Underneath that, we have no other untested support for quite some time. As you guys know, we tested 73.90 last week. We kind of rode it. That was the same level as 74.14 on ES, and then we played it, and we basically launched all the way up into the untested area up here, filling up this massive gap that we talked about last week. Okay, so this was a huge push for us, guys, and this level is going to be very important again because this is the inception of that move. All right, so for me, these two are the quality buys. Obviously 12 being a little bit more sexy simply because it does have an untested daily level. And then just below 73.90, we start to come down as we've tested this 4-hour and this 4-hour. And as you guys know, this was the amazing 4-hour that we caught the long off of. That was when we held the structure and swept this low. But again, as you can see, if we do break 73.34, we're going to come all the way down. And we don't have really anything untested till 72.34 and 7200, which we've been eyeing for some time. So kind of an interesting spot here that if we come down, we can expect, a real flush because we just don't have anything other than this gap fill, which I obviously watch here, but the real true level of support is much lower. So just looking at SPX, we have two spaces to buy, right? And then one spot to be very aware if we're above or below. Obviously underneath 75.01, if we reopen next week, could bring us down into these areas here. Okay, so that's what I got for you on SPX, something to be aware of. Now I want to show you something else that came across my feed that I think is really important to point out. This is something that came out on a History Says comment that I put out, if we have some pretty good statistics. Let me show you this. So this came out a couple days ago, May 22nd, out of my bot that essentially monitors SPX and monitors, the 150 different indicators and kind of puts things together from a statistical standpoint. And this thing's been pretty spot on. For those of you guys who have paid attention to this has been an immaculate indication of whether we were going to move higher or lower. And again, it doesn't mean it's always right. Okay, but I just want to point something out. I thought this was interesting. Basically starting to say that we're a little bit cooked over at the highs. That basically we have a 5-day expected return of minus 2.3%. There's an 83% possibility, and again an 82% possibility in 10 days that we go lower, right about 3%. Now, is that always what's going to happen? No, we don't know that for sure, right? So here's the median path from across the 1-day, 5-day, and 10-day, and then of course the outlier was 23% from up here, and that must have been like some sort of .com bubble or COVID or something like that. But so I tend to remove these outliers a little bit, but I just wanted to show you that basically this Across 30 years, we had 294 historical matches that had the exact same pattern that we're seeing here. That was February 9th of this year, actually, and then again November of last year. They both produced these big pullbacks. And so, again, as we surf all-time highs, again, this market doesn't give us any indication from a technical standpoint or a process standpoint that we're looking to pull back. But I just thought it was some interesting information here I wanted to point out to you guys because, as you guys know, I mean, this thing is on one right now. I mean, they're buying this market up based on news that isn't even official yet. It's just so strange. This is a strange environment we're living in. So again, we're in buy the dip territory until proven otherwise. We don't really care. At this point, I've tried to disconnect myself from what we're actually trading and if it makes sense, because if you think about what this market's doing, it just makes no sense, right? It's hard not to short this stupid thing. But at the same time, if you take all that away from it and look at it just from a charting and technical perspective, we currently have no reason to be looking to the short side, but I thought those statistics were interesting to point out to you guys because those have been more right than not. And so just something to keep in the back of your brain. If we start to pull back a little bit, you'll know that that expectation may be filling itself. So let's go ahead and take a look at the ES and let's get into it. Okay, so as usual, I like to start with the weekly TPO or market profile. And as you guys can see, we've been kind of moving up, sideways, move up, sideways, move up, sideways, and then so far now we're moving up again. Okay, so you can clearly see the trend as we accept value amongst each other's value areas, and then they overlap, and then they push up, etc. All right, so just want to kind of point that out first. So one of the things I'm going to do is, because these value areas are very close to overlapping, kind of half and half, I'm going to go ahead and put this together. All right, and now what I've done is because we have this third week here, so this is 2 weeks together. Now I have another one here that really the value area is very close to overlapping. So I'm just going to do us a favor and go ahead and put these together for simple, observing purposes. So now look at this massive value area that we have. And I've went ahead and marked the 3-week composite value area high, value area low, and point of control. And then as you can see, we also have the previous weekly value area high, value area low, and point of control, all which are very relatively close into the 3-week composite locations. One of the things I wanted to point out to you guys that I noticed yesterday when I was looking at this is look at this right from the point of control area here. Do you guys see this? Look at all this buying above the point of control. Clearly buyers are in charge here. And then below that is where the sellers really start to kick into gear. And you can see that we had much more buying above the point of control than below the point of control. And this is very interesting because this is essentially for us too, when we get into the charts here, you'll see that this is, underneath this weekly TPO is where things start to get a little shady. Right? So this weekly point of control, is where things start to get a little on the rough side for the bulls. And so we're going to keep a real close eye on this as we look at these charts and as price continues to come back into here, right? So will they come back in? I mean, at some point they're going to, right? So we don't know when. All we need to know is what to do and be prepared when it does happen. So here we are way up here. As you can see, it's quote unquote a cash session today. This is all information that I will ignore come into Monday because, like I said, all this should be retraced at some point early on in the week. They normally do not keep holiday price action. Even on the first day, generally most of it gets corrected. So something to keep in mind anyways, and I wanted to show you this. And then obviously underneath the 3-week composite value area low, we're going to come all the way down here in this massive low volume area, as you can see, because look, this is volume, right? And then look, we have none, right? And then just a little bit. And then obviously that none area is our gap fill, and it's still pretty thin down here, as you can see in comparison to this section here. So we have a very thin low volume area below this that we're going to absolutely have to keep an eye on if we start to slip lower throughout the week. Okay, so just wanted to point that out for everybody. So let's go ahead and pull this over now. I want to show you the daily TPO, just an area that I'm keeping a track of. I thought this was really interesting because you're going to see it on the chart, and I want you to understand where it's coming from. Obviously, we have Friday's point of control on 75.05, but this was the spot that I thought it was interesting. So we have the 3-week composite value area high from the weekly chart I just showed you, and then look at Thursday. Thursday at this same location, we have a very large cluster of sellers who got trapped here. This obviously has my attention. As you can see, I have it marked as sellers got stuffed, right? So we're going to keep an eye on this as we approach. I may not necessarily play this for a long, but this will certainly be a fantastic spot to take for a target. And this is right around 74.65, which you'll soon see when we bring over the candlestick chart. So I just wanted you to see that and what was up. And again, like I said, this overnight price action right now is all complete trash to me, and this as well. So, as we start to look at these charts, please understand that I am not including this. And honestly, all the price action and the stuff that they're above, I would be scared to buy support as it starts to come back down. I've gotten hurt too many times doing that, and so I'd rather play it safe, and we'll talk about that right now. So here we go. Here's the daily chart, and this is really going to be the one that we're going to focus on the most. This is my RTH daily. This is the one I care about the most. This is an ETH daily to kind of give me an insight to see what's tested and what's not. But this right here is our weekly. Of course, as you guys can see, we are still on this unbelievable moon mission after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 green weeks in a row. We're now starting our 9th week up here. Will it be green or will it be red? It is hard to say. I sure as shit hope it's red, because this is starting to get pretty annoying. So, but we just trade the chart. So here's what I want to show you. And I have a couple areas here that we're going to focus on. Let me go ahead and just, let this chart take over the scene here so that we can focus on this one predominantly. Let me go ahead and just adjust this a little bit. Oops, excuse me. All right. So here we go. So this was the big resistance area right here, 75.27. We basically played this from the bottom up, as you can see on Friday. We got a nice little reaction and they pulled back, right? So then we had this is today, which is our holiday action, which, like I said, is complete trash. Now, due to the fact that we've closed above this, under normal circumstances, I would say, oh shit, we gained 75.27. Let's go ahead and buy this on the first pullback. And, watch this work. Come into the new week. But what I know is I will not be taking this trade, okay? Because like I said, for me, this whole move up was fugazi, and so I am not interested in buying 75.27 if we come back down initially. Will I miss the trade? Maybe, but I'll certainly be a little bit more safe because I've been burned too many times. So with that being said, just like SPX, we're going to keep an eye on 75.25 for above below. Below this, we could come down much lower. I only have one untested daily left. That's at 74.34. Pretty crazy to think that that's well over 120 points from our current location, because we continue just to pop and grind higher. And so this really has become the only daily time frame untested level that I have. And yes, we do have some other smaller time frame stuff, but looking at this right now, this is kind of what we got. So obviously another thing I wanted to show to you guys, this 74.14, as you guys know, this was a big level for us this week to stay above or below. It was pretty much everything that took us up. You can see it played below and played above, and this acted as support. But now this level is very much tested, okay? So below this daily at 34, I don't have much for untesteds. Now, we do have some 4 hours down in here that we're going to pay attention to, but ultimately below 74.14, this thing's in some serious trouble. And then it really goes bad below 73.74. It's just like the SPX level I showed you. So underneath this area, and yes, there is some 4 hours down here, which we'll look at, but from a daily perspective, we could technically come all the way down and play the 7,300 and fill the gap. And then my next untested daily is 72.64 underneath that. That's the next big spot that I'm looking at. So guys, there's not much for daily support here. Again, like I said, I'm not really looking to buy 75.27 if we come back down. I'm just going to wait and kind of let that play out and then figure out if we're going to stay above or below that coming into the new week. Okay, so underneath this, keep an eye on 74.34. Underneath 74.14, we start to get some issues, and below 73.74, we come down. Okay, I think that's very, very clear for everyone. Makes a lot of sense, and so when we get into the 4 hour, it's going to make even more sense. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, here we go. Here's the 4 hour, and here's the daily at 75.27. You can see we got very close to playing it on Friday. Again, what will happen when we come back down to it, it's hard to say. What I know is I won't be taking it because, again, for me, all this price action is complete trash, okay? So I do see a world where we could just go right through it like butter, and people would be like, oh, snap, that didn't work. And so my first level is 75.0725. for the true support area that I'd be looking to buy. There's actually a 1 hour located there, and yesterday's naked point of control at 75.05, which I'll show you on the 1 hour here as soon as we get a little bit more into this chart here. Okay, so again, above 75.07, we start to push up, and then we have to retackle 75.27, but then above that, we will continue to make new all-time highs. However, below this, there is not much for support for quite some time. I actually, from the 4 hour perspective, I don't have anything until we get down to 74.50/74.53. I have this little zone here of 2 4 hours that we need to watch for. We also have the previous weekly value area high here as well. So from a 4 hour perspective, keep an eye on this particular location. Now, something I wanted to show you guys, if you recall, I had this 3-week composite value area high, and then we also had this, this area here of sellers. They got stuffed, if you guys recall me talking about that. Okay, well, I actually have this marked here. You can see we have a sweep/reclaim. That's because this is the spot at 74.63. If they come down here and they play this area where we had all those stuffed sellers here, and they play this composite weekly value area high, I could actually see them reclaiming 74.69.50 and kind of squeezing back up a little bit. So keep an eye on this. I'm going to show you the 1 hour time frame shortly, and it'll make a lot more sense. And from that perspective, but I just wanted to point that out to you. So the other thing is now below our 74.50, and this aligns with SPX, we have this daily 4 hour combo. This is our last untested daily. Same exact thing we show with SPX. We have a 4 hour at 74.32.50. We have a 4 hour at 74.34.50. And this truly is the last untested daily level that I have. We want to see this level play and get back above 74.50 for us to squeeze higher. And then obviously, being above the previous week's value area high and the 3-week composite value area high give us reason to continue to look for our upside squeeze, okay? But again, check this out. Here is our big mighty 74.14. As you guys know, we played it multiple times last week, Thursday being the big day, and they held it and they jetted back up. Now, if you guys recall, we were also looking for our 2 levels, these 4 hour levels to play, 74.05 and 7400. These levels are very much untested. And what I would be looking for is for these levels to play as we have the monthly VWAP right here as well, and then get back above 74.07, which are these 2 wick lows here, and then of course back above 74.14, and this could essentially create a very large squeeze for us back into 32 or even potentially higher. Okay, so just be aware of this. But one thing also to keep in mind, like I said before, below 74.14, it starts to get really soft. As you can see, this is the previous weekly point of control, and this is the 3-week composite value area. 3-week composite point of control. And if you recall, I showed you this massive line of buyers and sellers and how it shifts extremely hard underneath the 3-week composite point of control. So this is a very obvious area for us looking at all this information that essentially below 74.14, we got to have our guard up, okay? So below 74.14, what do we got? Woo, we come down here. We have our last and final untested 4 hour at 73.64. There's also a 1 hour level located there at 73.65. This level could play. We want to see it get back above the daily at 73.74 that we talked about, which was like, remember me saying like this is underneath this, it all goes bad, right? We need to play 64, get back above 74, and then look to take profits around 7,400 and 74.14. And if it reclaims this, then we come back up. But highly doubtful that that happens. This is probably the big main target for us for that move. This is the 3-week composite value area low. As you can see, this whole structure was held up from that. And like I told you, it kind of goes south underneath that. And yes, below that area, we do have a 4 hour level located at 73.40. And so if they come down, they could play this and then reclaim this wicks lows here in this 3-week composite for us to squeeze back higher. Something we certainly shouldn't ignore. Okay, so that's kind of the 4 hour structure that I got for you guys that matters. And then again, as you can see, if they come lower than the 3-week composite value area low, and I'll go ahead and just kind of move this up a little bit. you can see we come down quite considerably, and we start to fill in this big, massive gap from 73.25 to 73.01, and this is our first untested top-down daily right here at 72.64, which I like very well. So this will be our first real solid buy. If we start to lose this big structure, this will be the area that we want to look to really just kind of lay into it. Because if this holds, this actually could send us all the way back up. So we will see what happens when we get there. Let's go ahead and take it down. Let's go ahead and take it down to the 1 hour real quick so we can get a little bit more granular and then go enjoy our holiday. So as promised, here's the 1 hour. And here's that daily at 27. Don't really love it for top-down support anymore because of this ridiculous push-up. But here is that 07.25 4 hour that I told you goes in combination with an 08.25 1 hour and the naked point of control at 05. To me, this is a first really solid buy, and I'd be looking to take profits around 27 and then hope we could get a push higher on the runners. However, if this comes lower, we can come down quite significantly. As you can see, I have a 1 hour 74.74. I want to see this play and then reclaim the 74.78 before I got long. Okay, that would be the next move. All right. Underneath that, look, here's our seller stuffed level. And you remember I talked about this reclaim low here. I want to see 62 play, reclaim 69, and ultimately 74. And then we may get a little action. Okay. But underneath that, as you can see, underneath that, we have our 74.50 area, these 2 double 4 hours with the previous weekly point of control. Really like this spot. Want to see this play and then ultimately push higher. And then last but not least is our spot much lower here at our 74.34, 74.32, 74.26, this daily 4 hour, 1 hour combination. And then we have a naked point of control at 29. This level really is screaming at me. So we want to see this play and really get back above 36. And then they could really squeeze super nice off of this spot. But this is our last untested daily area. So we need to keep an eye on that. And then below here, this is the area that I was talking about before. Here's the 07 sweep. And then here's our 74.05 and 7400. This is kind of the inception of this move up here. And so what I'd really like to see happen is to come down, play the 74.05 or 7400, reclaim the 07, and then ultimately the 14. And then let's giddy up, right? And then 34, etc., and keep moving. So we'll see how this plays out. That's essentially what I got for you guys. I don't want to beat it.